Hello, everyone, and welcome. Today, I would like to introduce you to Mr. Dmitri Woods. I believe he hails from the great state of Kansas, or at least he's been there the past about 20 years. Most recently, he spent a good bit of time in the Lansing Correctional Facility, which is located in Leavenworth, Kansas. And fun fact, Leavenworth, Kansas and Fort Leavenworth actually have 5 prisons there. Now, this doesn't include the old military, or not military, the old disciplinary barracks, which was the primary place to house military prisoners. I think I covered this in another stream at some point in time, but that's like the central hub of prisons, it seems, in the middle of the US. Back in 2005, Mr. Woods was convicted of aggravated robbery and then in another county, criminal threat and criminal possession of a firearm. He ended up being incarcerated in the Reno County, Kansas, Hutchinson Correctional Institute facility. While he was in there, he was not exactly a model prisoner. He racked up 9 different charges, including violating public orders multiple times, fighting twice, having dangerous contraband, and interfering with cell operator visibility. Then he was charged with 2 counts of battery on a corrections officer, and that happened in 2008. That case actually had to go to court because of the severity of it. It drug on for quite a long time, and I can't figure out why because the documents aren't published, but he was found guilty 2016, but then the case was reopened and dismissed in 2018. Again, I can't really dig in to figure out why. He was transferred to the El Dorado facility, which is in Butler County, Kansas, and, instead of settling in well to his new environment, he received citations over the next couple years for incitement to riot, disobeying orders, fighting, and having dangerous contraband. They transferred him then to the Lansing facility, where he racked up 2 counts of battery on a law enforcement officer / corrections officer. He went to court on those 2 and took a guilty plea in 2015. From 2014 to 2019, he seemed to settle down just a little bit. I think that's because he was in jailhouse lawyer school. And at the time, he wrote several writs for petition of habeas corpus. Ultimately, they were denied. He did not receive any kind of relief from all those efforts. He started getting in trouble again in 2019. First, it was fighting, then interference with cell operator visibility ×3, disobeying orders, fighting, disobeying orders, battery. Then came December 5th of 2020 when Mr. Woods ended up with 7 felony charges. And that's what he is here on today, these 3 hearings that I'm going to show you. He was charged with battery against a law enforcement officer, a level 5 person felony. About 6 months later, the charges were amended to reflect 5 counts, 2 of which were battery against a law enforcement officer, a level 5 person felony, and then 3 of them were a level 4 person felony, and noted that an improvised stabbing implement was used. So now we head to the 13th Judicial Circuit in Butler County, Kansas, Judge David Rickey's virtual courtroom to hear the probable cause conference to proceed with these charges.
This is in the District Court of Butler County, Kansas, case entitled State of Kansas versus Dmitri Ray Woods. It's case number 2024 CR 160. The State of Kansas appears by Brett Sweeney of the Butler County Attorney's Office. James Watts appears as defense counsel. Defendant Woods appears apparently from Lansing Correctional Facility by Zoom. This matter comes before the court at this time for evidentiary preliminary hearing. Mr. Watts, it's court's understanding that Mr. Woods wishes to address the court personally.
I believe that's the case, Your Honor.
Well, this is a little bit out of order, Mr. Woods, but what is it that you want to address the court about?
Well, I'm having difficulties with my attorney, so if possible, I would like a change of counsel.
Difficulties with your attorney?
Yeah.
You're just getting started with the case, Mr. Woods. He's the most experienced attorney that we have in our district.
Well, I've asked him a couple times about some issues that he's not willing to present or do, so that's why I'm asking for such.
Mr. Wood, well, let me address Mr. Watts. Mr. Watts, do you have anything that you wish to say?
Your Honor, Mr. Woods has asked me to make a couple of motions. As Your Honor is well aware, and I've told Mr. Woods this as well, I will not file motions that do not have a basis in law and will not file what I consider to be frivolous motions. In particular, Mr. Woods has asked for a motion for a change of venue. I see no basis whatsoever and absolutely zero chance that a change of venue motion would have any basis, and I will not file such a motion.
All right. Mr. Woods, you're under the impression that you can't get a fair trial in Butler County?
No, not at all, especially being that the facility is so intertwined with the Butler County District.
Mr. Woods, it may be surprising to you, but Butler County has a large population that's very diverse. I would guarantee you there's probably many, many prospective jurors who aren't even aware we have a maximum security penitentiary in Butler County, much less intertwined with it, as you suggest. In a smaller county, that may be a valid concern, but in a suburban county of this size and diversity, I don't think that's a valid concern.
Issues as far as that.
And change of venue would be most important for the trial. We're at a preliminary hearing stage here. And I assure you that you're going to get a fair shot from this court regarding preliminary hearing evidence. So, quite frankly, I don't see that there is a legitimate concern over counsel or counsel's performance.
Well, not only that's just one issue. The other issue is what we discussed in private. My basis on another motion that I would like for him to file, which he's not even willing to go over the paperwork and entertain. So it's just where it leaves me stuck.
All right, just that Mr. Woods' tactical decisions are made by the criminal defense attorney, not by the defendant themselves. I think you can have a discussion with him about what you would like to see pursued, but those ultimate determinations are made by the lawyer, not by the client.
Well, I just did that, and he's not even willing to cross-examine the paperwork, so that's why I say another change of counsel needs to be.
Well, I'll at this time, the court's going to deny your request. Mr.
As long as
Woods,
it's on record, that's all I want.
very well. Trusting, of course, Mr. Sweeney, that you're ready to proceed, I'm going to ask you to call your first witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. The state would call Officer O'Brien.
And Your Honor, we would ask witness to be sequestered, please.
All right. Everyone else who's been called as a witness today and who's on this meeting needs to be put into a waiting room. So, Mandy, if you would do that.
If I may, Judge.
Hang on, Mr. Woods.
To be a witness.
Okay, I think we're ready to proceed with evidence at this time.
Okay.
All right, Mr. O'Brien, raise your right hand. The court will administer an oath. You do solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in the matter now in hearing shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help you God.
I object, Your Honor. He has nothing to do with this. He was not a witness, is hearsay. He's not a victim or a witness. He was not there.
Did I hear an I do?
I do.
I will. Okay, all right.
I object.
Oath is completed. All right, you good. Mr. Woods, why don't you save the objections for your attorney? Okay, let him do that.
Well, he should do that. That's why I just asked you to pause. If I was present, we wouldn't have these problems. I would be able to reach over and tell my lawyer I would like for him to object. O'Brien has nothing to do with this.
Well, we'll see about that. And Mr. Sweeney, I hope he does have something to do with this case.
Yes, Your Honor, he's the affiant.
He's not a victim. He's not a witness.
All right.
Present the camera. I mean, let's just show the camera right now, and it will show that I didn't do all other
Mr.
trials.
Woods, I understand your ongoing concerns, but I need to get through this case. I've got a number of cases lined up today, and this one's starting way late.
Please do.
Okay. So I'm just going to need you to hold on and be quiet while the court proceedings take place. Begin your questioning of the witness, Mr. Sweeney.
Thank you, Your Honor. Sir, would you please state your name for the court, please?
Thomas O'Brien, Special Agent Supervisor, EDCF, EAI Division.
Okay. And Mr. O'Brien, you stated a job title. Who do you work for?
Kansas Department of Corrections,
How long have you been employed with the Kansas Department of Corrections?
approximately 25 years.
Okay. And in that job title that you previously mentioned, does that involve investigating incidents that happen inside the correctional facility walls?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Officer, I want to direct your attention to December 5th of 2020. Were you made aware of an incident regarding allegedly an inmate by the name of Dmitri Woods on that date?
Yes.
When did you first become aware of this incident?
I don't recall the exact time. Shortly thereafter, shortly after the incident occurred.
Okay. And so when a situation like this happens, can you talk to me a little bit about what your role is regarding investigation and video retention, that sort of thing?
Yeah, so a lot of things start in a staff battery. Any available facility DVR footage is backed up and retained. Staff interviews be conducted, resident interviews if they participate in this specific instance. Resident Woods and a couple others were transferred out of El Dorado right after the incident, but he was given an opportunity to interview at Lansing, which he refused. He invoked his rights at Lansing, so as did the others. But so that's it. Any evidence retention, any evidence that we could get, we would retain and log and evidence logs and stuff like that.
Okay. And I may ask you to speak up just a little bit. I'm having a little bit of a difficulty hearing you. In this specific incident, specifically as it relates to Mr. Woods, were there a number of individuals, staff members that were involved or possibly injured?
Yes. I believe there were five staff members.
Okay. And so did you have a chance to review the video? And if so, can you kind of just give me a brief narrative of what you viewed there and how this incident started?
Yeah, would I be able to reference my report?
Objection, Your Honor, under best evidence rule. If they were going to narrate the video, the best evidence would be to watch the video. Let's see the video.
I didn't quite hear what it was that he was wanting to reference.
Well, the counsel asked him to basically describe what he saw in the video. And I understand that he could certainly do that, but the basis for the prosecution and the basis for his evidence is the video. That's available for all to see. The best evidence is available under the best evidence rule is to put the video on. So if the video is going to be the basis for the testimony, display the video.
What is it that he was wanting to reference? Can I get an answer to that?
My report.
The court will allow him to access his report to refresh his recollection. The objection's overruled.
So in my report and in my affidavit, I actually gave a chronological report of the events as they were viewed on the DVR footage, which is why I requested to review my report. If you want specific times, I can go through and give you to the second by what the DVR timer said. So,
Officer, can you just give me a brief narrative of how this started and who all was involved?
It initially started with a fight / battery between three other KDOC residents. They were in a fight. That fight was response officers showed up, and they got that fight broken up, and one of the residents involved in that fight tried to escape out of the cell house. Or I shouldn't say escape. He tried to leave the scene. Go to another cell house, and he was caught right in between the cell houses by Officer Wallace. Wallace stopped him. That resident was not compliant and was fighting Wallace. Wallace initiated a use of force to get him restrained. And at that time, Dmitri Woods came through into the Sally Port where this incident with Wallace and one of the original suspects, or one of the original fighting residents, was taking place. Came into the Sally Port with a stabbing type instrument in his hand and stuck Wallace in the face with that. He went on to, if I remember correctly, he went on and kneed an officer by the name of Redneck or something to that effect. I don't recall his name. And then he punched another officer in the Sally Port. He went through that into the cell house where the original 3-person fight was, and stabbed Brandon Neely in the face with that stabbing instrument. And then the video showed he took a swing at Sarah Owens at her face with that stabbing instrument, missed her with the instrument, but punched her in the face. Brandon Neely was able to take Dmitri Woods down, and he gained control of the weapon that Dmitri Woods had. At some point, Sarah Owens had gone out into the Sally Port area from the cell house. And when they got Woods restrained, they went to escort him out of the cell house through the Sally Port, and he kicked Sarah Owens in the face on his way out. And that's a basic basis for this.
Okay. Did you personally ever interview Mr. Woods?
No, Woods invoked his right.
Okay. Now, was there ever a motive determined for any of this?
The best that I could tell, the two of the original attackers in that original 3-man incident were residents who were just becoming or trying to become members of the blood gang. They're trying to become blood members. And Dmitri Woods is a validated blood member. So when the use of force in the Sally Port with Officer Wallace occurred, that was with one of the newly joined bloods, or the guys that's trying to be a blood. I believe Dmitri Woods was defending another blood member, and obviously that's not something that could be completely substantiated because nobody talked, but that's what it appeared like in my training and experience.
Sure. And so you were the one that investigated this case. It sounds like you had certainly some familiarity with the El Dorado Correctional Facility. Do you see Mr. Woods here in the Zoom conference today?
Yes, I do.
And if you could you maybe point that individual out and give a brief description for the court?
Dmitri Woods, his little camera square says Amy Huffman, LCF. He's a light-skinned an African male with a beard, mustache, and curly hair.
Okay. Your Honor, let the record reflect that the witness has now identified the defendant.
The record so reflects.
Okay. And I don't know if it was ever testified to, but did this happen at the El Dorado Correctional Facility?
Yes, it did.
Okay. And it sounds like it happened in what, like kind of an open area or a day room inside the prison. Can you kind of describe for me what the room situation is where this happened?
So the cell house looks almost like a butterfly shape, with one cell house being the right wing, and then the other cell house being the left wing, and in the center, where the butterfly body would be, is called the sally port, and that's where you enter into the front of the cell houses, and you'll either go to the left, which would be the one side, or the right, which is the two side. So Dmitri Woods' involvement started in the sally port between the two cell houses, and then continued on into the two side day room, which is where he had initial contact with Sarah Owens and Brandon Neely.
Okay. And so it sounds like also there were a number of officers who were injured in this situation. What's the protocol when an officer is injured? Do those individuals receive treatment in facility, or are they taken out and seen in outside hospitals? And what happened here?
If it's a serious injury, they'll be triaged by on-site medical, which is their contract medical provider. But anything outside of that, they go off-site for treatment.
Okay, and in this situation, with these respective individuals, who all was, to your knowledge, who all was seen in sight and then out of sight as far as their injuries?
I don't know who was seen, if anyone was seen by on-site medical, by the on-site medical provider. But I do know that well, I believe that Sarah Owens, Brandon Neely, Robert Wallace, Johnson, can't remember her first name, Amy or Ashley Johnson, and then the Ethan Rabenik, or however he pronounces his name. Those were the victims, and
Okay.
so
Okay. Is there, well, I think with that, I don't have any further questions for Officer O'Brien.
Questions for this witness, Mr. Watts?
Very briefly, Your Honor. Mr. O'Brien, were you present at the scene where this incident took place?
I'm sorry, you cut out partway through that.
Sir, were you present at the scene at or about the time where this incident took place?
No,
So everything you get secondhand from other persons, correct?
that is correct.
Okay. Nothing else. Thank you.
Very well. I trust Mr. O'Brien can be released at this time, Mr. Sweeney.
Well, Your Honor, as it relates to that, I would, I guess, ask Mr. O'Brien, to Mr. Watt's question, everything that you were able to ascertain is basically from the video and speaking with other people, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and how were those videos maintained? And did you happen to view the video in this particular case?
Your Honor's objections outside the scope of cross.
I think you did open this door, Mr. Watts. Mr. Sweeney, you may continue.
Okay, how are those videos maintained, and did you have a chance to view the video in this case, and did you get some information about this case from that video?
Okay, the videos are maintained on a server initially. The DVR server, it maintains those videos for approximately 30 days before they get overwritten. So any video that we need to retain has to be backed up and saved on a different server, which is what we do. Then for cases like this, those videos are downloaded onto I'm sorry. Those videos are downloaded to a flash drive or a hard drive to be submitted with the case, which is how you would get those videos.
Okay, and are they turned over to the county attorney's office?
Yes.
Okay, and have you seen the video in this, again, you've seen the video in this case, right?
Yes. Yes. I
Okay,
do.
was that altered or edited in any way before it was presented to the county attorney's office?
No, it was not.
Okay, Your Honor, may I have the opportunity to share my screen and share what I believe is a very short video, about a couple minutes long, maybe?
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Court will admit the video into evidence at this hearing, and you may show it at this time, Mr. Sweeney.
Thank you, Your Honor. Okay, now, officer, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and press play. Okay, so Officer O'Brien, were you, I've now stopped sharing my screen. Were you able to view that video?
Yes, I was.
Okay, and what did it appear we were looking at there?
That was Dmitri Woods after he'd battered the staff in the Sally Port coming into the two side, where he took the swings at Officer Neely, and Officer Owens. Neely was the one who grabbed him from behind, took him down to the ground. Owens and some other officers came to help while he fought them. At one point, for sure, at least one point, you can see the weapon still in his hand before Neely got control of that weapon.
Okay, now Mr. Watts had asked you about that you weren't there when this happened. Was the knife for the stabbing implement ever presented to you, or was that ever located?
That was, yeah, that should be in our evidence. If I remember correctly, Neely secured that inside his stab vest once he got a hold of it.
Okay, what was it?
It was just a long metal stabbing, a long metal rod.
Do you know how it was obtained, or how somebody would find something like this on the inside of the El Dorado Correctional Facility?
No, there's a number of ways that materials to make weapons are obtained. They could be from a construction project that's going on. Sometimes they'll dismantle office furniture or um, cabinets, metal file cabinets. Yeah, take stuff off the walls sometimes.
Okay. Your Honor, I don't have any further questions for this witness.
Do you, Mr. Watts?
No, sir.
Very well. I trust he can now be released as a witness here, Mr. Sweeney.
Yes, Your Honor.
Very well. You may stay with the meeting, Mr. O'Brien, or leave it at your choice. If you do stay with the meeting, please mute yourself.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Next witness, Mr. Sweeney.
Your Honor, the state would call Mr. Wallace.
And have him brought in. Mr. Wallace, if I could get your face on screen.
Yes,
You raise your right hand, I'll administer an oath. You do solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in the matter now in hearing shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help you God?
Yeah. yes.
Okay. You may question the witness, Mr. Sweeney.
Thank you, Your Honor. Sir, would you please state your name for the court, please?
Robert Wallace.
And Mr. Wallace, you know why you're here today?
Yes.
Okay. And let me ask you, who were you employed by on December 5th of 2020?
At Dorado Correction Facility.
Okay. And Mr. Wallace, on this specific date, December 5th, 2020, do you remember if there was an incident out at the prison that you were involved in?
Yes.
Were you injured on that day?
Yes.
Okay. And can you tell me specifically just basically what happened?
I responded to a call for an officer needs assistance due to some resident fighting.
Mhm.
When I arrived at the cell house, I noticed a group of residents going from one side to the other side.
Mhm.
And one of them caught my eye because I saw some blood and chemicals on his sweatshirt. So I stopped him. I put him against the wall, told him not to turn. Before I restrained him, I was trying to get the control operator to close the doors to stop the flow and to prevent more people getting involved. After like the third time that he kept on turning towards me, I put him on the floor. At that time, one of the residents that was on the opposite side, I saw him pull something from his waistband and came towards me, resulting on black eye and a cut on my left side of my face.
So he hit you with whatever he had in his hand. Is that what you're saying?
With his fist and with the weapon that he had.
Okay. And were you familiar with the resident that did that to you?
Yes.
Who was that?
Dmitri Woods.
Okay. And how long had you worked at the prison before this incident happened?
I started there in 2012.
Okay, so you had worked there for quite some time. Mr. Wallace, can you talk to me about any medical assistance that you received as a result of an injury related to this incident?
From the cell house, I went to the infirmary. They cleaned the cut and stuff like that, but then they sent me to Susan B. Allen to be checked out there. They did a CT scan for possible skull fractures. I was having some issue with my left eye. I saw a eye doctor. I was still having issue. They sent me to a neurology. Then after that, nothing else.
Okay. How deep, maybe last question, how deep was the cut up around your face and eye?
It wasn't too deep. It was pretty light cut.
Okay, but there was some issues maybe with your eye that they were looking at?
Yes.
Okay. And that's where you think you got hit with the weapon or the fist?
Yes.
Okay. Your Honor, I don't have any further questions for this witness.
Mr. Watts, you have any questions for Mr. Wallace?
I don't believe so, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay. Any reason why Mr. Wallace can't be released from the meeting, Mr. Sweeney?
No, Your Honor.
Right, Mr. Wallace, I'll go ahead and release you from the meeting. You can stay with it if you want to, but if you do, I'm going to ask you to mute yourself, okay?
All right,
Thank you, sir.
thanks.
You call your next witness, Mr. Sweeney.
Your Honor, the state would call Sarah Owen.
Ms. Owen, if you'd raise your right hand, please, I will administer an oath to you at this time. You do solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give and the matter now in hearing shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Okay. You may question the witness, Mr. Sweeney.
Ma'am, would you please state your name for the court, please?
Sarah Louise Owen.
And Miss Owen, do you know why you're here today?
Yes.
Okay. You were subpoenaed, of course, right? Okay. Miss Owen, can you tell me where you were working on December 5th of 2020?
I was working for the Kansas Department of Corrections at El Dorado Correctional Facility.
Okay. And how long had you been there at that time?
I had been working since September 24th of 2018.
Okay. And I'm going to specifically direct you to that date, December 5th, 2020. Do you remember or recall an incident that you were involved in where you may have been injured?
Yes.
Can you tell me just kind of what happened?
So I was working in C cell house. There was an officer needs assistance, and I responded to it. I went into D2, and there was already spray and stuff on the floor, so I do remember it being slippery. I went and restrained another resident who had been sprayed in the face. So he had actually walked into the officer's like break room area. I got him calmed down, got him cuffed up. We were walking out, and then he or I was the target, but we were both thrown into a wall. Another officer took over his escort to get him out of the cell house after that point. And then I believe that is when Brandon Neely and I were attacked by Mr. Woods. And then after that of trying to get him restrained, I noticed that Wallace was having issues in the Sally Port, so I went in there to get him, help him get another resident restrained. As I was getting that resident restrained, I was on the, I was like kneeled down, getting him restrained and trying to get him up because he was also disoriented. And as I was trying to get that resident up, Mr. Woods was being escorted out by CS1 Brown, and that is when he kicked me in my jaw and was escorted back out. And I think that's about all of my interaction with Mr. Woods. After that, I did keep going in, trying to get the cell house to comply, and also getting doing yard control, getting guys to get into the pens and stuff just to make sure there's no more movement until Lieutenant or Captain McGuire and CS1 Davis and others brought in the, I don't know, like the actual technical term, but the war wagon, and we ended up getting everybody finally locked down and safe and secure. And then that's when I was sent to the hospital to be evaluated.
Okay, and I want to come back to that in just a bit, but I specifically want to direct your attention to kind of your interaction with Mr. Woods. It sounds like there were two incidents involving Mr. Woods.
Yes.
Okay, the first one, I think you just stated you were attacked. What did you mean by that, and specifically what happened?
So after the first resident was handed off from me, I noticed both Sally Port doors were open, and he was specifically looking at Neely, I believe, and started running at Neely. And him and Neely ended up on the ground, and by the time I got over there, I gave multiple commands to please cuff up, cuff up, cuff up. I did give pressure points. I tried pulling him off of Neely. I kind of realized that there wasn't a whole lot that I could do with my strength versus Woods. So I saw Officer Brown coming in, and he is a lot more physically fit than me. So he took over, and I went over to help Wallace. As far as what happened because of the adrenaline and the stuff with the like being shoved or pushed into the wall, I don't remember a whole lot of what had happened with the interaction with Neely between that and then going into Wallace.
Let me just try to see if I can narrow this down a little bit better. Do you remember if there was a weapon involved?
Absolutely. I saw Brandon Neely. So as he saw Neely, as Mr. Woods saw Neely, he came at him with a stabbing device and stabbed him or attempted to stab him right in the forehead. I believe it was more than once, but for sure the one time it did bend. I remember it being in his hand multiple times. While we were scuffling around, I was trying to get it from him. Neely was trying to get it from him. I don't recall if I was the one that got it from him. I do know I had gotten another weapon, but I don't remember if it was the lock and sock or the stabbing device.
Miss Owen, let me ask you this: were you ever hit with the stabbing implement?
Yes.
Where?
I believe on my left side of my vest, and then up in here.
Like around your neck?
Yeah.
Okay. And
But
then
I don't know. I will be honest. I don't know if it was because it was pretty bent at that point. I don't know if it was his fist or the actual device.
there. And then it sounds like there's a second incident while he's being transported away where
Mhm.
you're kicked.
Yes. So I was helping a resident off of the floor. I got him restrained. And as I was trying to get him off the floor, Officer Brown was escorting Dmitri Woods out of the cell house. So we were in the Sally Port. He broke escort with Officer Brown, and that's when he kicked me in the jaw.
Direct hit or kind of a glancing blow?
Sorry.
A direct hit to your jaw or kind of a glancing blow? Do you remember?
Direct hit.
Okay. And it sounds like you went to the hospital as it relates to some of these injuries. Talk to me about that and any injuries sustained.
I do have, I believe it's a 4% permanent disability in my shoulder, or 9%, sorry, between my shoulder and my jaw. Um, I don't know how else to describe that. I had a independent medical evaluation done.
Well, but let me ask you this: did they give you any specific medical diagnoses as it relates to this incident and injuries you received?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
But what did they tell you was wrong with you, I guess?
I have a permanent impairment.
In your shoulder?
Yes.
Okay, so ligament damage or muscle damage, or do you know?
No. I was not requested, advised for to have more tests done, but those didn't end up being done. So I ended up having a settlement and use that to go get care. And so now I just have kind of a maintaining care going on.
Okay. Last question. What are the lingering medical issues that you still have related to this attack?
I grind my teeth now. My jaw clicks a lot. My shoulder swells if I don't continue my exercises or my preventative care or continue seeing doctors or chiropractors. I can't do a lot of catch or sports with my right arm anymore, else it starts to swell up.
Okay. Well, thank you, Miss Owen. I don't think I have any further questions
Okay.
for you. Thank you.
Okay, and if you need the IME, I do have a copy, so I can send that to you at another time.
Thank you, Miss Owen.
You're welcome.
Questions for this witness, Mr. Watts?
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Owens, I guess my following question here relates to this last part. You are no longer with the Department of Corrections, correct?
No, I am with the Department of Corrections still. I just no longer am an officer. I work in reentry now.
Okay, what is re-injury?
Reentry, so I do programming to help guys when they get back out.
Okay, I misunderstood you. Re-entry, okay,
Yeah. Sorry.
that's all right. How long did you serve as an officer inside the walls at prisoners at various prisons?
So from September 24th of 2018 to April of 2021.
Okay. So from September of 2018 to April of 2021, this incident takes place December of 2020, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Is that a yes? Is that a yes response?
Oh, yes, sorry, yes.
Please answer yes or no.
Yes.
I'd be willing to bet this is not the only time you were involved in some sort of a physical altercation or incident with inmates.
Correct, just not to that severity.
Okay. I guess I'm trying to figure out, you conclude that your disability is directly related to this particular incident. Is that what your conclusion is?
That's what the doctor concluded.
Was that a evaluation that was done immediately after this incident or later on?
Later on.
But after this incident, you continued to serve as an officer until basically another 4 months till April, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Were you able to do your duties during that time?
I felt like I wasn't able to. I lost a lot of rapport that I had with a lot of my residents. I felt like I wasn't an effective leader anymore, especially in that cell house after everything happened. So I did make the ultimate decision to take a break and leave the Department of Corrections.
But during that 4 month period, you didn't have a physical disability that prevented you from doing your job, correct?
Correct.
Nothing else. Thank you.
Sweeney, can this witness be released at this time?
Yes, Your Honor.
And Ms. Owen, you can stay with the meeting or leave it at your choice, but if you do stay with the meeting, please mute yourself.
Okay, I will.
Thank you. Mr. Sweeney, another witness?
Yes, Your Honor. Say we call Officer Neely.
Mr. Neely, if you'd please come on audio and join us with video as well. There we are. All right, Brandon Neely.
Yes.
Okay, if you'd raise your right hand, the court will administer an oath at this time. You do solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in the matter now in hearing shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help you God.
Yes.
All right. You may question the witness, Mr. Sweeney, and I will tell you, Mr. Neely, I want to make sure everyone on the meeting can hear. So please speak up when you answer, okay?
Okay.
All right. You may begin your questioning, Mr. Sweeney.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Neely, well, would you please say your name for the court, please?
Brandon Neely.
Mr. Neely, do you know why you're here today?
I do.
Okay, Mr. Neely, are you still employed with the Kansas Department of Corrections?
I'm no longer employed with the Kansas Department of Corrections now.
Okay, let me ask you this. Were you employed with the Kansas Department of Corrections on December 5th of 2020?
Yes.
Okay, and at that time, were you working out at the El Dorado Correctional Facility?
Yes.
Okay, and you were working with inmates on the inside?
Yes.
Okay, specifically working back to that date, December 5th, do you remember an incident that happened on that date? And if so, can you talk to me briefly about what happened?
No.
Why is he cut?
You're breaking up, Mr. Neely.
I apologize. I don't have the best reception. I'm sitting in the middle of nowhere right now at work. I apologize. If I need to repeat anything, please tell me.
I don't think I heard any of what you said previously. So if you could just start from the top.
So I was 5315, which is a radio number that is relation to main compound entry supervisor, or main compound supervisor. I responded to an incident in D cell house side, I believe, 2, where there were 3 inmates involved in an altercation, 2 against 1, involving a weapon. When I got to the cell house, I gave commands and orders for them to stop fighting. In turn, they did not stop fighting. I deployed chemicals. When they started to disperse, one of the inmates, we walked into the strip out room, the yard strip out room, where we placed him in restraints and began to walk him out of the cell house. Upon walking towards the sally port, Dmitri Woods came rushing through the sally port where I.
Okay, I'm gonna stop you right there. You cut out again. Yeah, okay. Sounds like you're maybe back with us. Can you start with the part about Mr. Woods?
As we were walking towards the sally port of the D2 side, Dmitri, or inmate Woods, rushed through the sally port from the 1 side to the 2 side, where I still had my MK9 in my hand. I then deployed chemicals in the direction of Dmitri Woods, where they did not seem to affect him. He stabbed me in my forehead. When he did, the weapon that he was wielding bent. It bent in a 90-degree angle. The weapon he was wielding, it was a 12-inch long by 3/4 inch wide piece of metal with one end sharpened. The other end had a makeshift handle made out of, I believe, bed sheets or clothing. When he stabbed me, he began to move past me, where I reached behind me, grabbed him, and pulled him to the ground with me. At that time, we wrestled for the weapon. I took the weapon from him. I from him. I pushed it down into my vest so that it was secure, so that the inmate could not get it back. Where then we started to give him orders to restrain. He fought to be restrained. We did end up getting him restrained, where in turn we stood him up and began walking him towards the sally port door. As we got towards the sally port door, that's when he kicked Officer Owens in the face. At that point, he was placed against the wall. the escort was then switched out due to KDOC policy. The escort was switched out because the officer that is the original use of force is not allowed to escort the offender. I switched out with 2 other officers, and I don't remember who they were at this point in time. But as they got him out of the cell house, he got combative again, where he was then placed against the wall or against the front door of D cell house. And then placed against the front door of D cell house, the offender started to show signs that he would be compliant with orders, where he was then walked. Or no, he was not walked. He was complying with orders while being placed against the wall, where SST came down and took over escort of the inmate and escorted the inmate from D cell house to wherever he went from that point.
Okay. Officer Neely, let me ask you this. It sounds like you kind of chronicled or detailed in your testimony the main portions of the incident. Do you remember him having or seeing him having an interaction with Officer Johnson?
I'm not 100% for sure on that one.
Okay.
I do believe Officer Johnson was in the Sally Port when he came through the Sally Port.
But you saw him kick Miss Owen as well?
I did see him kick Miss Owen, yes.
Okay. It sounds like from your testimony that he stabbed you with this implement that you described in your head. Talk to me about any medical attention that you received and what any diagnoses for that attention was.
I received medical attention on site at El Dorado Correctional Facility. In front of the cell house, Miss Nurse Lampkin did look at my head and tell me that I had been stabbed. I did not know at the point in time that we got outside that I had been stabbed. Nurse Lampkin did look at me and tell me that I had been stabbed and that I needed to go seek medical attention. I was then, after the incident had been completely finished, they had sent me off site to Susan B. Allen Memorial Hospital in El Dorado, Kansas, where I don't exactly remember what all medical treatment I got there. I know that they ended up super gluing the stab wound closed. I don't have medical record to show it. I haven't been diagnosed with it, but I do believe that I have some mental issues that come from this incident.
Okay. Officer Neely, were you familiar with Mr. Woods before this incident?
I was.
Okay. Do you see him in the Zoom conference today?
I do.
Can you point that individual out?
Mr. Woods is the one in the screen that says Amy Huffman -LCF. He is a light-skinned African male.
Okay. I have no further questions for this witness.
Mr. Watts, do you?
No questions, Your Honor. Thank you.
Mr. Neely, I can release you from the meeting at this time. If you stay with it, and you're certainly entitled to, you just need to mute yourself, okay?
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Next witness, Mr. Sweeney.
Last witness, Your Honor, I believe is Officer Grabenich. I believe I saw him.
All right, sir, I'm going to administer an oath to you at this time. If you'd raise your right hand, please. You do solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in the matter now in hearing shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help you God.
Yes.
Very well. You may question Mr. Grabenich. Mr. Sweeney.
Thank you, Your Honor. Would you please state your name for the court, please, sir?
Ethan Grabenich.
Mr. Grabenich, do you know why you're here today?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Grabenich, are you still employed by the Kansas Department of Corrections?
I am not.
Okay. Let me ask you this. Were you employed by the Kansas Department of Corrections on December 5th of 2020?
Yes, sir.
I'm assuming you were stationed out of the El Dorado Correctional Facility?
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Okay, I want to reference that December 5th, 2020 date. Do you remember being involved in an incident on that day? And if so, can you please describe for me what happened?
Yes, sir. So, I was working a cell house that night. I was on the response team. I can't remember exactly what time. I think it was like between 8 p.m. and 10 p.m. We get a call for offenders fighting in D cell house, I believe. There were weapons involved. When I arrived, I see Wallace, I believe, attempting to restrain a inmate. And so once they pop the doors, I go in there to assist them in the sally port with that offender. Um, and then there's a crowd of inmates on the D1 side that's kind of hovering by the open door right there. And I look to my left and I see Dmitri Woods pull out a homemade stabbing device out of his pocket. I believe it was his right pocket. And then that's when he charged us. He stabbed Wallace in the left eye. And then as soon as I grabbed hold of the Dmitri Woods, that's when he struck me in the neck with the weapon, and then he kneed me, and I fell to the ground. And then Dmitri Woods ran to the D2 side, and then by the time I got back in there, they I believe it was Sweeney and one or two other officers were trying to wrestle the weapon away from him, and I go in there assist them. We finally get the weapon away from him, finally get him into handcuffs. We get him up. I'm one of the ones escorting him out of the cell house, and as we're walking him out, he attempts to kick another officer. That's why I have to place him on the ground. And then once he's under control again, we pick him up and we move him out of the cell house where I've relinquished control of him to another officer.
Okay. Thank you, officer. Officer, when you initially responded, were you with COI Ashley Johnson?
It doesn't ring a bell. I didn't know many officers working out there.
Okay.
But I know there was a few female officers out there at the time.
Okay. Officer, did you receive medical attention for any injuries that you may have sustained during this incident?
I did not know.
Okay. You didn't see even the in-house folks for the injuries?
No, sir. I just had a little kink in my neck from where he struck me with a weapon. That was it. I didn't see any, need to seek medical attention for it.
Okay. Officer, I don't think I have any further questions for you. Thank you.
Mr. Watts,
All right.
any questions for this witness?
I don't believe so, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay, very well. And it's my understanding, Mr. Sweeney, that was the state's last witness to call this morning?
That's correct, Your Honor.
Does the defense intend to call witnesses at this hearing, Mr. Watts?
Not at this hearing, Your Honor. Thank you.
Court's prepared to rule on the various counts of the information at this time. Regarding count 1 involving Ethan Grabenick, the court does find that probable cause has been shown that the crime of battery against a law enforcement officer has been committed and that the defendant, Dmitri Woods, committed it. Defendant is bound over on battery against a law enforcement officer, a level 5 person felony in count 1. Regarding count 2 involving Ashley Johnson, the court finds that there's been virtually no evidence at all presented to this court to support probable cause as to that count. Even the investigating officer provided no information to support battery against a law enforcement officer in regards to Ashley Johnson. Defendant is not bound over on count 2. That charge is dismissed in its entirety. Regarding count 3 involving alleged victim Brandon Neely, the court does find that the state has shown evidence supporting probable cause that the crime of aggravated battery against a law enforcement officer, a level 4 person felony involving Brandon Neely, has been committed, and that the defendant, Dmitri Woods, committed it. Defendant is bound over on count 3. Regarding count 4 involving Sarah Owen, the court finds in this case that the evidence did support that there was a kick to this individual Also, the evidence reflects that even Sarah Owen herself cannot provide testimony to this court that a deadly weapon was used upon her. The state's charging document refers to the fact that the aggravated battery against a law enforcement officer charge was based on the use of a stabbing implement. The evidence does not support that in regards to Sarah Owen. Furthermore, the court doesn't want to make light of the fact as to the possible damage that a kick to the neck area can do, or the other roughhousing that went on that day. Court, however, finds that the state has not shown that there's a causal relationship between the incident involving Dmitri Woods and the eventual disability that Sarah Owens sustained. It may have been a contributing factor. However, the evidence just simply does not rise to the level of probable cause. However, the court will bind over on the lesser included charge of battery against a law enforcement officer in regards to Sarah Owen, a level 5 person felony, and the court will bind over Dmitri Woods on the level 5 person felony in count 4. Regarding count 5, regarding Robert Wallace, the court is particularly concerned about the stabbing that took place near the eye area of Robert Wallace. That in itself, in the view of the court, supports the charge of aggravated battery against a law enforcement officer. The evidence presented by the state does show probable cause that that crime has been committed and that the defendant, Dmitri Woods, committed it. Woods is bound over for trial on count 5, aggravated battery against a law enforcement officer, a level 4 person felony. Do you need the court to summarize its rulings on these counts, Mr. Sweeney?
No, Your Honor, I think I have a good understanding of the court's ruling, and the state will prepare an appropriate preliminary hearing during the lunch meeting.
Very well, thank you. Court will proceed to arraignment at this time. Mr. Wast, does your client desire the charging document to be read to him?
Let me inquire of Mr. Woods. Do you have a copy of the charging document? A printed copy?
No.
You do not. Judge, given that he apparently does not have a printed copy, I would ask that perhaps we read this to him at this time.
Very well, Mr. Watts. Count 1 alleges on or about the 5th day of December 2020 in Butler County, Kansas, Dmitri Ray Woods did knowingly cause physical contact in a rude, insulting, or angry manner while in custody of the Secretary of Corrections to another person, to wit, Ethan Grebenik, a state correctional officer or employee, while such officer or employee is engaged in the performance of such officers or employee's duty in violation of KSA 21-5413C3A, A2, G3C, battery against a law enforcement officer, a level 5 person felony. Count 2 was dismissed by the court in preliminary hearing. Therefore, the court will omit the reading of that particular charge. Count 3 reads, on or about the 5th day of December 2020 in Butler County, Kansas, Dmitri Ray Woods did knowingly cause physical contact in a rude, insulting, or angry manner with a deadly weapon, or in any manner in which great bodily harm, disfigurement, or death can be inflicted, to wit, improvised stabbing implement to another person, to wit, Brandon Neely, a uniformed or properly identified state, county, or city law enforcement officer, while such officer was engaged in the performance of such officer's duty in violation of KSA 21-5413D2A, B1C, G4B, aggravated battery against a law enforcement officer, a level 4 person felony. Count 4, as eventually modified by ruling of this court, reads in original form. On or about the 5th day of December 2020 in Butler County, Kansas, Dmitri Ray Woods did knowingly cause physical contact in a rude, insulting, or angry manner with a deadly weapon, or in any manner whereby great bodily harm, disfigurement, or death can be inflicted, to wit, improvised stabbing implement to another person, to wit, Sarah Owen, a uniformed or properly identified state, county, or city law enforcement officer, while such officer was engaged in the performance of such officer's duty in violation of KSA 21-5413D2A, B1C, G4B, aggravated battery against a law enforcement officer, a level 4 person felony. The court does wish to clarify for the record that following the court's ruling at preliminary hearing, the charge which currently stands and exists in this case is level 5 battery against a law enforcement officer. Again, a level 5 person felony. And the defendant is being arraigned on that charge. Count 5 reads as follows. On or about the 5th day of December 2020 in Butler County, Kansas, Dmitri Ray Woods did knowingly cause physical contact in a rude, insulting, or angry manner with a deadly weapon, or in any manner in which great bodily harm, disfigurement, or death can be inflicted, to wit, improvised stabbing implement to another person, to wit, Robert Wallace, a uniformed or properly identified state, county, or city law enforcement officer, while such officer was engaged in the performance of such officer's duty in violation of KSA 21-5413D2A, B1C, G4B, aggravated battery against a law enforcement officer, a level 4 person felony. How does the defendant plead, Mr. Watts?
Your Honor, my client would plead not guilty to all charges at this time. Ask the case be set for appropriate pretrial and jury trial settings.
Court will establish same.
Can I get a copy of that?
Mr. Watts, can you send that to your client?
I can send him a copy of actually, I'll send him when Mr. Sweeney files the amended, I will send him the amended charging document.
Court will establish Tuesday, December 3 as the jury trial date in the case. Tuesday, December 3. Continuing day to day thereafter until complete. Starting at 9 o'clock on December 3rd, unless announced differently later. We will establish a pretrial conference by Zoom the week before. Fortunately, it is Thanksgiving week. Ten o'clock a.m. on Tuesday, November 26th. November 26th, 10 o'clock a.m. for pretrial conference. That will be by Zoom. The defendant must join that meeting.
Judge, we have 11 a.m. available. 10 is already taken.
Okay, I have 11 already occupied on my calendar.
Okay.
Okay, well, let's just avoid a possible problem. Let's move it to the afternoon. I trust DOC can accommodate a 3 o'clock setting.
Yes.
Okay. So 3 o'clock, Tuesday, November 26th for Woods. Again, Mr. Woods will be expected to be present on that Zoom meeting at pretrial conference. 3 o'clock, Tuesday, November 26th is currently the next setting in the case.
Can I go over some things with my attorney?
I think we have enough time to give you a breakout session at the conclusion of this proceeding. Mr. Woods will try to accommodate that. This will be a private session between you and your lawyer by Zoom.
All right.
All right. So Mandy, I'm going to ask you to accommodate that when we formally recess, but I want to ask Mr. Sweeney first. Is there anything else that we need to cover today as part of the Woods proceeding?
Not that I'm aware of, Your Honor.
Mr. Watts, anything further at this time?
No, sir.
All right. So I'm going to ask at this time, upon recess, for the meeting to remain open so that we can have a private session between Mr. Woods and his lawyer. If there's nothing further, then the case is formally in recess. Everyone else may leave the meeting at this time. This is in the District Court of Butler County, Kansas, case entitled State of Kansas versus Dmitri Ray Woods, case number 2024 CR 160. James Watts appears as defense counsel. Mr. Woods appears from a Zoom location at a correctional facility. Brett Sweeney appears for the state of Kansas. This matter comes before the court at this time for pretrial conference. Mr. Watts, are there any announcements to be made?
Your Honor, discussion with the state as well as my client. My client wishes to preserve for appeal the issue raised before the court and that Your Honor denied in a decision dated November 6th. Pursuant to discussions with the state, it is our understanding my client would enter a trial on stipulated facts as to count 4 of the information as amended after the preliminary hearing as a level 5 battery of a law enforcement officer, the one involving Sarah Owens. I will be happy to prepare a statement of stipulated facts for the court that would let him preserve the issue of the double jeopardy issue for appeal.
All right. Mr. Watts, are you aware that essentially Mr. Woods, I think apparently on his own, filed yet another motion to dismiss, this one entitled Motion to Dismiss Pursuant to KSA 6212?
This is the first page of the self-filed motion to dismiss in this case. There is 16 pages to follow this and several other filings, as well as several petitions for writ of habeas corpus filed by Mr. Woods on his own behalf. I'm going to go ahead and post those over on the Patreon for anyone who is interested. They're enjoyable reads.
I am, Your Honor. I have that one as well.
All right. I just wanted to make sure you were aware of it. And I can
That
defer ruling on that until time of our trial on stipulated facts, if you so desire.
It appears to be essentially the same argument characterized under Kansas statute at the second time.
I think
And I have no objection to that, Your Honor.
all right. All right. How much time are we looking at before you'll be in a position to complete a stipulation of facts, run that by Mr. Sweeney and get his agreement on the stipulation, and be ready to present the trial on stipulated facts to the court?
Judge, I think we can do it sometime next week.
I'm just not
I've
sure
got-
I can. I have jury trial next week, so
Oof.
and I don't want to unnecessarily delay this. It's just perhaps we could back it in on Friday, December the 6th, and just hope that the court would be freed up by then. I'm optimistic that I can be, but you never know, as you're quite aware, Mr. Watts.
Yes, sir.
I think I need some direction. If there is a prison official in the room with Mr. Woods,
Yes, there is.
are there times I need to stay away from regarding scheduling?
The only thing I have on my calendar for next week would be Wednesday the 4th at 1 p.m. So Friday anytime would work for us here at the facility.
All right. Contemplating 1:15 p.m. that afternoon, counsel?
Judge, I can. I've got 1, 2, 3 on the show cause docket, it looks like. Do you have anything in the morning?
Wouldn't that start at 2:30 or is it starting
Yeah.
early?
It starts at 2:30.
Okay, so 1:15.
I can do that, Your Honor.
Okay. And I realize I don't want to put any unnecessary pressure on you to get the stipulation done and get it over to Mr. Sweeney. I do understand it's a short work week this week, but if you can accomplish that next week, we'd be in a position to proceed. And I trust the
Yes, sir.
stipulation of facts would be filed with the clerk's office once agreed upon.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I might be able to access it in advance of the hearing. But we'll set the scheduled trial on stipulated facts for Friday, December the 6th at 1:15 p.m. All right, at some point, we're going to have to address waiver of jury trial right in the case. I can go ahead and take that up now. I can take it up prior to the trial on stipulated facts. But I think that it needs to be addressed, and I want to make sure that we make a record on that part of things. You have any thoughts in that regard, Mr. Watts?
I don't have a preference either way. We could take it up next week with the trial of stipulated facts. or we can take it up at this point, whatever my client would prefer. Frankly, I don't have a preference either way.
All right, Mr. Woods, I think we're going to go ahead and address this now. Mr. Woods, you have a constitutional and statutory right to a speedy trial on the charges against you. Do you understand that?
Yes, I do.
Okay. You also understand that you have a right as for a trial by jury.
Yes.
Okay. You understand that when this court would hear the case on a trial on stipulated facts, implicitly, you're waiving any right to a jury trial where you'd have a right to have this case tried to a jury of your peers.
Yes, I understand as long as it's in agreement with what my lawyer and I discussed.
Well, apparently the trial on stipulated facts would be done, at least in part, to preserve your right to appeal an issue, which I think you involved a couple of times in these motions to dismiss.
Yes, sir.
All right. So is it your intention to freely and voluntarily waive your right to a trial by jury in this matter?
Yes.
All right. And I trust the state would also waive any right it would have to a jury trial in this case, Mr. Sweeney?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, very well. Court will find that both parties have knowingly waived their rights to a jury trial in this case. As earlier scheduled, it is the intention of the court then to have this case resolved on a trial on stipulated facts to be prepared by the defense submitted to the state. And we will proceed with that trial on stipulated facts December 6, 2024, 1:15 p.m., subject only to rescheduling if the court's jury trial next week is not completed. I do appreciate the correctional facilities having Mr. Woods not only available today, but also next week at 1:15 p.m. for further proceedings in this case. Mr. Sweeney, is there anything else that we need to address currently?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Watts, anything further at this time?
No, sir. Thank you.
Mr. Woods, do you have anything that you need to address the court about at this time?
No, sir.
Very well. Then if there's nothing further, the Dmitri Woods matter will currently be in recess, and this meeting This is in the District Court of Butler County, Kansas, case entitled State of Kansas versus Dmitri Ray Woods, case number 2024 CR 160. Mr. Woods appears by Zoom, as does his counsel, James Watts. Brett Sweeney appears for the state of Kansas. Pursuant to docket notes from November the 26th, the parties had agreed to try this case on stipulated facts today, with the defendant desiring to preserve his double jeopardy claim for appeal. Counsel, if you would review with me exactly what the parties' agreement is regarding the various charges which originally existed in this case?
Yes, Your Honor.
Judge, my understanding was simply a trial on stipulated facts on count, what would now be count.
Your Honor, it's on count 4 of the amended information that was filed on September 5th following the preliminary hearing.
Judge, my understanding is there's no further agreement regarding sentencing, simply a trial on stipulated facts on the sole count
Of aggravated battery against a law enforcement officer.
Actually, I think it's
Your Honor, it's the
battery
level
against
5 in the amended information on count 4.
All right. So battery against a law enforcement officer, a level 5 felony, correct?
Yes, sir.
And the disposition of the other charges which existed in the case?
Your Honor, those are being dismissed per agreements for the stipulated facts on count 4.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. I appreciate that clarification. All right. Mr. Woods?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I've just got some things I need to go over with you. Now, the last time we were in court, the court recalls that it specifically went over your right to a jury trial in the case and you waived it. Is that still your position, that you're waiving a jury trial in this case?
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Woods, implicit in what we're doing today would also be a waiver of your right to be personally present at the trial of the merits of your case. Are you also waiving your right to personal presence?
Yes.
All right. And further, the court does want to note for the record that this court had earlier entered a ruling in this case regarding a motion to dismiss that was filed by Mr. Woods. He essentially renewed that by a motion to dismiss pursuant to KSA 6212 filed on November the 14th, which essentially raises the same double jeopardy argument that was dealt with in the court's original ruling. The court, for the record, notes that it has considered the motion to dismiss pursuant to KSA 6212 and denies that motion. The court will grant no relief, finding that essentially its ruling would be the same as it was that was earlier issued in writing regarding the original motion. What happened to Mr. Watts?
Judge, he just cut out. We just may give him a second to get back on.
Mandy, did you note when he left the meeting?
In the middle of your statement there.
Okay.
Okay, am I back? I blinked off, Your Honor, and I don't know why,
I hope you can stay with us, Mr. Watts.
as do I.
All right, not knowing exactly where you fell off the meeting, Mr. Watts, I will repeat that this court has found that Mr. Woods has knowingly and here on the record today waived his right to a jury trial, waived his right to personal presence at his trial on the merits, and furthermore, the court has ruled today that the motion to dismiss pursuant to KSA 6212, the redo of his original motion, is once again denied by the court for the same reasons that were expressed in the original ruling, which, Mr. Watts, interestingly, you called a letter ruling. I'm not sure why you called it that. I don't recall that it was in letter form, but there is a written ruling of record denying the original motion to dismiss, which the court again reiterates here today. Proceeding further then with the trial on stipulated facts, the court is aware of a document submitted by the defense this morning to the court. It is entitled Stipulated Facts. It is 2 pages in length. I trust that that's the document we're going to be discussing here today. Mr. Watts?
Yes, sir.
All right, Mr. Watts, from the defense standpoint, are there any additions or modifications to the stipulated facts?
None that I'm aware of, Your Honor. The first paragraph of the stipulated facts contain what we believe are the appropriate stipulated facts for the count. The following paragraphs simply talk about the motion to dismiss, as Your Honor has previously noted.
All right, thank you, Mr. Watts. Does the state have any additions or modifications that it wishes to make regarding the statement of stipulated facts submitted by the defense?
Your Honor, no additions or modifications. They are stipulated and agreed upon.
Very well. Court will read those into the record. Court finds that the facts that would be proven in this case would be as follows. On or about December 5, 2020, at the El Dorado Correctional Facility, located within the boundaries of Butler County, Kansas, the defendant, Dmitri Woods, made physical contact with Sarah Owens, at the time a properly identified corrections officer, in performance of her duties in a rude, insulting, or angry manner. Mr. Woods was at the time of the incident an inmate at El Dorado Correctional Facility and was at the time responding to an incident involving another inmate when Ms. Owens was struck. What the court has read is the entirety of the stipulated facts in paragraph 1 of the document. As Mr. Watts appropriately noted, paragraphs 2, 3, and 4 essentially involve case procedural history and are not part of the stipulated facts record in the case. This court does find that the stipulated facts in this case is the entirety of what the court is to consider regarding evidence to prove guilt or innocence in this case. The court does find that most of the elements of the crime have been covered by the statement of stipulated facts, but the court must find, based on the stipulation which both parties have agreed to, that an essential element of the offense has not been proven by this stipulation. And the court has 2 statutory citations for that proposition. Battery under KSA 215413 requires that to be a battery, there has to be the defendant has to knowingly cause physical contact with another person when done in a rude, insulting, or angry manner. Furthermore, KSA 215202, culpable mental state, requires, and I'll read as follows, except as otherwise provided, a culpable mental state is an essential element of every crime defined by this code. A culpable mental state may be established by proof that the conduct of the accused person was committed intentionally, knowingly, or recklessly. The court notes that the legislature specifically required that for a conviction to take place for battery, and then implicitly any form of aggravated battery, the state must show that this was knowing conduct, that it wasn't done potentially accidentally. It was done knowingly in a rude, insulting, or angry manner. And the court cannot infer that just because the touching was rude, insulting, or angry, that it was also knowing, because these are separate, independent requirements of the statute. The court had previously inquired if the state had any modifications or additions to the stipulation. They said they didn't. Court must, again, make the decision in this case based solely on the stipulated facts currently before the court. Mr. Woods, I don't know if you've understood anything that the court has said to this point, but the court at this time has no choice here but to enter a judgment of acquittal. In other words, that's not guilty finding in regards to count one, because the stipulated facts simply do not constitute the full elements of the crime in this case. I know that wasn't the intended result here, and I detect no bad faith on behalf of the defense. I'm always puzzled when the prosecutor lets the defense attorney draft the stipulated facts regarding elements that the state is required to prove. And again, I'm not again suggesting that Mr. Watts has done anything but put forth a good faith stipulation of facts with the idea that this case would ultimately be decided on appeal rather than at the trial court level. Ironically, Mr. Woods, it would appear that since the state has dismissed all of the other charges that were brought in this information, that they've had the full opportunity to prosecute those charges. They dismissed the others and went to trial on a single count, which the court has entered a judgment of acquittal. So, ironically, Mr. Woods, for different reasons, I believe that concepts of double jeopardy prevent the state from further prosecuting any of the other charges in the case.
Your Honor, if I may.
You may.
It was my contemplation that those charges would be dismissed upon a successful taking of a plea.
That's not what you stated earlier, counsel. Well, actually, there was no plea.
Well,
and,
right.
And the court very much understands that, Mr. Sweeney. That's a common understanding that it's dismissal upon successful taking of a plea, but there was no plea here.
Right. And if I may, Your Honor, I mean, I know that it's pretty rare that we do trial on stipulated facts, and maybe I should have, maybe I just worded that incorrectly, but I guess it was my understanding that those charges would be dismissed upon a successful finding of guilty per the stipulated facts within what had been presented to the court.
If you have a written record of that agreement between you and defense counsel, I will consider it. Actually, these courts' comments are merely that. I haven't been asked to rule specifically regarding any double jeopardy claim in regards to the other counts. But only made a ruling and entered judgment of acquittal as to the sole count. I believe that was count 4 that was submitted to the court for the trial on stipulated facts today. What the legal implications are, the status of the rest of the charges, I suppose we'll leave up in the air. Court's already given what it thinks based on what's been announced in court, very well may be the result. But Mr. Woods, I don't have any reason at this point to set any more court dates or to have you answer any further on this. You may hear something further regarding this in the future. I think it was the intent of the parties that today's trial would essentially end district court proceedings. And the case would go up on appeal on the issue that you had raised in your motion regarding double jeopardy. But essentially, you've been acquitted by the court. Mr. Woods, I've just got one other thing that I want to say, whatever it's worth. A lot of times, prison inmates have the belief that the court system is never fair with them, that fair and unjust things and just things don't happen in court. Maybe you would look at things differently based on today's case. I believe you have the right to be treated fairly and in accord with the law, and I made my ruling in that regard. Mr. Woods, anything you want to say? Okay.
I'm sorry about the incident. I appreciate you.
Okay. We'll see what happens from here.
Thank you.
All right, counsel, I don't believe there's any further business we need to take up at this time. If there's nothing further, the Dmitri Ray Woods matter is in recess. This meeting may be ended for all at this time.